All right, class, I'm going to do a quick introduction to the new unit, the muscular system. So you're going to need colored pencils and your note packet to get started today. We're going to kind of focus the first lesson around this little case study, which is a reading you'll do after you finish this lesson. And if you look, it's very subtle, but if you look, you can see this young girl, this swimmer, has a slightly asymmetric look to her eye, and there's like a drooping eyelid. There's other symptoms that go along with this, but it does affect the muscular system. And the reading is nice because it kind of goes over really bits of everything we're going to cover in this unit. It's a lot shorter than the skeletal system, I can tell you that. Okay, so I like to start right away with the basics, like what are the major functions of the muscular system. Most people right away say movement. I usually brainstorm these together with the class. But yes, it's movement. I want you to think of movement as movement of, like meaning moving the bones, right? So making actual movement, or movement by. So you could also have the intestines squeezing and having food pass through it, then the intestines actually doing too much movement, if that makes sense. So it kind of depends on which muscle you're talking about. Another example would be the heart, like contracting with the blood passing through it or by it, right? Okay. Another one people often say is protection. It does offer some protection, not as much as bones, for instance, like the skull. But if you think about your abdomen, that it really doesn't have bone protection. So the different layers of muscle found there do help protect it. So protection we could put. Another would be support. If you didn't have muscles, you would be just a pile of bones, right? And so the strength of those muscles help your body to have the right position. Another thing that is a clue about muscular system that it's maybe having some problems with it is posture. It helps produce your posture. That's closely related to support. But some types of muscular dystrophy, one of the first things you notice is kind of a poor, slouched over posture. So having those core muscles can help show that you're in the right position, I should say, right? Okay. Another one that people don't think of, but it does help with this, is if you shiver, your muscles are moving together. They help keep you warm. So your muscles do help with temperature regulation. And the last one, that this probably one is one you don't think of quite so much. I have this picture of an Xbox. I'm sure it's probably very outdated. But when my son played a lot of that, he doesn't as much now. He's 20, but he used to play, and when he was younger, it was Minecraft and all this stuff, and there'd be a lot of screaming if one of his friends blew up his structure, and I would go down there. I'm like, Noah, stop playing so many video games. If you stay in that position for too long, you could die. And it's true. If you have your body in the same position for a very long time, whether you're in a hospital bed or whether you're playing video games, you could die from a blood clot because your muscles are actually helping with circulation to move your blood around. If your blood isn't moving around, if it stays in one place, it can form a clot, and then that could lead to a stroke and death. And there is an article that I have there that shows this kid. I can't open it because this thing doesn't work that way, but it shows this kid who documented. I think he was in the UK. You can look it up, but he did die from playing video games. I think it was, I don't know how many days, continuous days he was playing, but he did die from that. So circulation is another important function, especially the walls of the arteries. Even just your leg muscles help bring your blood back up to the heart. Okay. Let's do a quick review of muscle tissue. I know that's your favorite unit, but we need to go over the 3 types of muscle tissue. So this one is smooth, and this is copied in your notes there, so you can write this out. So we could label that A. And then this one is skeletal. You can see the striations really clearly. Oh, I just wrote striations. Skeletal. Okay, so we'll label that one B. And then the last one would be cardiac. The way you can kind of tell here is there's lots of gaps. And then, I don't know if you can see them, but there's some discs, the intercalated discs. So that's cardiac. And we'll label that C. Okay, so now if we just go along with this quick matching just to refresh our memories about this stuff. If they're long and cylindrical shape, many nuclei is the big clue. The skeletal has many nuclei. What are the two types of muscle tissue that are both striated? That would be B and C. No striations have a smooth appearance. That would be A, smooth muscle. If they're branching, that would be cardiac. The only one that we have direct control over, that's skeletal. That is B. And the heart muscle, of course, would be cardiac. And then internal organs or hollow organs, smooth muscle does that. So that's a quick review in terms of their function. Here's a little bit better picture of them microscopically. And so I'm going to label these real quick, and then you guys can just circle the features of each one. So skeletal is our first one. Let me put this in black because red is going to be a little hard to see. Okay, so if we look at skeletal first, skeletal is the only one that's voluntary. Okay, and then the next thing on your list is whether it has one nucleus per cell, uninucleate, or multinucleate, many. This one's multi, has many nuclei per cell. All right, the next one on your list is cardiac. That's over here. Cardiac is involuntary and is uninucleate, okay? So we don't have direct control over whether, our heart is beating, and it's striated. I'm kind of messing this up, sorry guys. And this one's striated. Okay, and then finally we have smooth over here. Smooth is involuntary. It's uninucleate, and it is also non-striated. Okay, so again, just a quick review of muscle tissue, but we're zooming out, I promise you. We're zooming out to look at muscle tissue structure. So let's do that. This is where I would like you to have some colored pencil, so you can pause the video if you need to. You need a blue, a green, and a red, because it's going to help you a lot with figuring this out. This slide is colored for you, so you can kind of write in the definition. So the epimysium in blue is covering the outside, the entire muscle, okay? So when we do our chicken wing dissection, which I'm hoping to do when I come back, you can see the epimysium. It's connected directly to a tendon. You'll be able to see it clear as day on that chicken wing. The paramysium, now we're starting to get inner wrapping, so that's in green on this diagram here. And it's a weird word, but it's called a fascicle, and that you need to know. There's a lot of vocabulary in this unit. The paramysium wraps that bundle, and it's called a fascicle. And then finally we have the endomysium, which is very delicate tissue, wrapping just a single muscle cell or fiber, and that's in red. What do they all have in common? They're all made of connective tissue. And they help protect. Okay, so I don't know if you guys have ever help prepare meats if you eat meat in your house, and for instance skin, like taking the skin off chicken and that kind of thing. If you actually look at raw meat, the muscle itself is very fragile. Like you can just pick at it like with a fork or a knife and it breaks apart, and you'll see that when we do our dissection. So it really needs protection to prevent damage. So these protection layers here, we're talking about wrappings and layers, are strong and they help protect the muscle. So that's what they're for. Okay, so now you have this in your notes, and you're going to use your colored pencils here. They're going to be your best friend. So we're going to take blue, just like the diagram that you have that we just looked at. You're going to take your blue pencil first, and you're going to lightly shade. Oh, yes, I can do this. Let me see. I could do this. Okay, so you're gonna lightly kind of color the outside like that. And then, let me see if I can make this thinner. Okay, then you're gonna take your blue. Is that working? Oh, I turned it off. You're gonna take your blue and just go around the outside like that. Okay. So what that is that you just shaded, that is your epimysium. Okay? And that is wrapping like your entire muscle. Over here, another thing you can label, this is your tendon. Okay? And the tendon is connecting that muscle directly to a bone. So this whole thing here is a muscle. You can see the two tendons on either side, and we're just cutting it in half and looking at it in the cross section. If we turn the cut and look straight at it, that's what we're seeing in the bigger picture on top. Okay? All right, now we're going to pull out a bundle, right? So this would be our fascicle. So this is when you're going to use your green colored pencil. So I'm going to switch to green here. Okay, hopefully that'll work. And then we're going to lightly shade this in. And we're going to go around it as well. Okay, so that is our fascicle. We could color the whole thing. Don't go crazy if you don't want to, but like this is also green. Can I make this look a little bigger? So we can make this green. This is the paramecium. So it's wrapping kind of that next layer. So you can color all of that if you want to. It's definitely not required, but that's what this is. Okay. So this is paramecium. Actually, wait. Change my mind. Let me put it over here. And that is wrapping the structure called the fascicle. Okay, so that's our next layer. So the fascicle has bundles of muscle cells. So that's our inner layer, which we're going to do in red. So I'm going to change my color to red here and lightly color this in. Okay, and then I'm going to have to do this thinner. I think I'm going a little too crazy with this coloring thing. So it would be like this. Like in here would be red. Just in between the muscle fibers themselves, okay? So what is this wrapping? Muscle fiber or cell. And what's the wrapping called? Endomysium. Okay? All right, now the last two things are even smaller than a muscle cell. These are made up of, they're called myofibrils, which is basically like an organelle. If you think of an organelle like a mitochondria or a nucleus or something like that, myofibrils are considered organelles or cell parts. So this is a myofibril. And then if you pull out myofibril, are made of very, very thin threads called myofilaments. Okay, so that's our basic structure of a muscle. And we're going to kind of go on and look a little more, zoom in a little bit on some of these structures next, okay? Okay, so what we're doing now is we're looking at that part over here. So we're zooming in just on that on your next page. And you guys should have this. Let me make sure it's in your notes. Yes, you have this. Okay. So if we start over here at the top, we're going to say, okay, what is this structure? This is a muscle fiber, just so we know what we're looking at. In fact, this, I don't know if you can see it on your diagram, not really that well, but this is like trying to show you a nucleus. That's one of the clues you know it's a cell, right? So a muscle fiber equals a muscle cell. Some of your muscle fibers are really long. It's as long as your muscle is. So you have bicep fibers that are that long. Okay, the wrapping around a muscle fiber is your endomysium. I highly recommend you make some flashcards. This is just kind of memorize, epimysium, paramysium, endomysium, and what they wrap. Okay, and here we have our myofibril again. And here we have our myofilament. So this is kind of repetitive of what we just did. We're just zoomed in. Okay, now there are two myofilaments, okay? There is one that if we use, let me see if I don't know why, but I usually color in this one in red. Or over here. This is myosin. And myosin is called the thick myofilament. So there's one that's kind of thicker and one that's thinner. Okay, and then we have our thinner one. This is called actin, and actin is the thin myofilament. More delicate. Okay, so sometimes I color those. You guys can do that if you want, if you feel like it. Okay, then last term you need to know is that the unit of actin and myosin are repeated units, and that's what gives skeletal muscle its striped appearance, the striations, and this is called a sarcomere. That is one unit of actin and myosin, okay? I know it's a lot of vocabulary for this lesson. We will be reusing it. So this kind of front loading I'm doing before I come back to school is so that you can cover this content, and then we can end up doing more labs when I get there. Okay, so one thing we need, this is a good organization chart for you. If we start really big, the whole entire muscle, it's composed of bundles that are called fascicles. What are the fascicles covered or wrapped by? They're wrapped by paramysium. Put a little arrow. What wraps the entire muscle? Epimysium. Okay. The fascicles are composed of fibers. What are those called? They're called muscle fibers, not really anything exciting. Or cells. What are they wrapped by? Endomysium. Okay, and muscle fibers or cells are composed of myofilaments. Myofibril should really go before here. Okay, and then of the myofilaments, we have the light ones. The light ones are the thinner ones, so that's the actin. And the dark or thicker, that makes them dark in appearance, are the myosin. Okay, so that's just an organizational chart kind of showing you the order in which it would go from being like largest to most delicate and smallest. Okay, now you can see the sarcomeres, and you're going to start to get an idea of what's happening here. The muscles start to shorten when they contract. Like if you take your fingers and you measure your biceps, they're shorter together when they contract. So muscles pull, that's how they work, they don't push. So the triceps is pulling to extend, my biceps is pulling to flex. Okay, so this is a relaxed muscle. So if we're going in this direction, it's relaxed. And if we go in the opposite direction, notice that the sarcomere distance is much shorter. This would be contracted, as it's basically labeled here. But okay, we're gonna, in my next lesson, next class, I'm gonna go over a little bit how muscle contraction occurs. It's a lot of physiology in there, but if you ever go into medical school, nursing, neurology, AP Bio, you may have done some of it. So we're going to go into that physiology, and then when I return, we'll definitely do more hands-on stuff. I'm trying to front load before I come back, all right? you guys are going to go on and do a quick assignment and a reading. And I will see you soon. Bye.